And now I'd like to welcome you to today's webinar, Strategic Thinking in Uncertain Times, Seeing and Acting with Clarity. I'm going to hand things over to our featured presenter today. She is an executive leadership coach and also a Zig Ziglar Legacy certified speaker, Toni Cooper. Toni, excuse me, you now have the floor. Oh, Toni, it sounds like
you can't hear me.
There you go.
See, I was practicing the mute button.
Perfect, loud and clear.
All right, so good morning, everybody, or afternoon, depending on where you are located in the world. I hope you all are doing wonderfully well. I know that the past 6 months have been an interesting 6 months for everybody. Throughout these past 6 months, we have gone through, many of you have gone through staying in your home, going to the office to suddenly working at home. Some of you have children and you had to learn how to become a teacher for a period of time. And some of you are now going back to work. Everyone is in a different circumstance and a different situation. And throughout all of that, the thing that I have learned is that many people are going through different emotions, different feelings, but how can we first and foremost help ourselves, our personal selves, to get clarity in our mind, to start thinking strategically, to start moving forward? And then how can we take that and move it to our team? So the goal today is really, this whole entire webinar is going to relate to whether you are a leader and you're working with team members, how you can do this with your team, but our focus today is really about you, because it really starts with you. If you're in a leadership role, how do you get better? How do you improve your thinking? How do you be a role model to what everybody else needs? But understand that everything I'm telling you can work with your team as well. So the first question a lot of people ask is, who am I? So there's a general bio of me. I have 20 years in the training and leadership field. I work with leaders on a regular basis, worked with a little over 20 different leaders through the pandemic and continue working with them, helping them to engage their team, helping them to educate, coach, and serve, as well as to encourage and support their team. I'm the past CEO of the River Raisin National Battlefield Park Foundation, and as you know, a certified speaker. But that's enough about me. Let's talk about all of you and where we are. So our goals today, our webinar objectives are to talk about what is fear, how do we navigate the process of strategic thinking for you personally and professionally, the importance of goal setting, and understanding the 7 essential steps. Now in this webinar, I'm just giving you overview, tips and tricks, things that you can walk away with and utilize. My goal is that when this hour is over, you have some tangible things that you can do. But again, we have classes at New Horizons that are going to dig a whole lot deeper into these, or even to take your entire team where you can work on these as a team. A lot of people, when they think of strategic thinking, including myself, I always thought, all right, sit down with your organization and figure out what we're going to do over the 3 to 5 years and really create a full strategic plan. And when this pandemic happened and suddenly everybody was thrown into a completely different circumstance, strategic thinking changed in my mindset. And what I realized is that strategic thinking is really looking forward to 3 months, 6 months, 9 months, a year, 3 years. I tend to work in threes. It's easier to remember. And so what happened, though, is a lot of people were, when they got thrown into this pandemic and suddenly working from home or trying to be teachers with their kids and trying to do everything else, they were just thinking about that moment. And all the strategic thinking just got thrown out the window. Our goal is to bring that back. And what we're going to do today is we're going to do it through a process of goal setting. I'm going to give you a formula for goal setting. I'm going to walk you through that process and give you kind of the big picture for it. So while I'm doing that and while we go through the overview, just think for a moment right now. If I came to you and talked to you personally, and I asked you this question, I want you to think about the answer. And if once you have the answer, if you want to write it down, write it down. But where do you see yourself 1 year from now? And if that's too far out to see, then think 6 months from now. What is, if you could achieve one goal within the next 6 months, what would that goal be? It can be a personal goal. I want to lose weight because I eat too much, being home, or I want to exercise, might be a personal goal. I want to get out of debt, whatever that is, right? Or do you have a professional goal? You want to do something with your team, you want to achieve a different position, or you want to learn a new skill. Okay, so think about that one goal for now. And throughout this webinar, let's use that goal for today so that you walk away from this webinar with some tangible steps. Okay? So let's back up for a moment and talk about the current realities of what's going on. The current realities of where we're at is people are dealing with a ton of different emotions. You may have found yourself or a coworker who was a happily excited person ready to work, and suddenly it's just not the same individual. Or you could see the complete opposite, where somebody was that negative individual that you didn't really want to work with, and now they're a much more positive, open individual. There's a lot of emotions happening right now. The emotions happen because there's fear of the unknown. They're having trouble finding balance, right? Suddenly they're at home, their family's at home, we're all here. There's emotions that can happen because of lack of structure, which is what we call change. Not everybody deals with change well, right? And so that change can happen, okay? Or the direction, especially since, you might have had 1, 2, 3 months where you were staying home, now you're at the office. Or it could be the opposite, that you were essential and you were continuing to work. It really depends, but that lack of structure and direction creates a lot of different emotions. The key to this is to have hope for the future. We can rely on our hope, which helps with our goals. Goals and hopes are what we're talking about right now. And so what we want to do with our team is we really want to give them structure, give them direction. And you want to do that with yourself. You need to set little goals. And we're going to talk through that process. So when we're looking at strategic thinking, you don't have to have the answer of what your team or what your business is going to look like a year from now. You don't have to have all the answers, but you can create a basic plan. So I want to give you a real life example, and then we'll go and talk about the importance of goals. I have one individual that I work with that back in December, we started working, and he knew that he was getting it's federal government. Okay? And he knew that he was getting a new employee in March, which is crazy. We had no idea what March was going to look like if we would have known. But in preparation for that new employee, we went through and we developed a complete action plan. What the employee's goals, what he has for the goals for the employee, what kind of training initiatives that he's going to need. The employee's name was Daniel. So what training initiatives does Daniel need? Where's Daniel going to need to be? What action steps does he going to need to take? And when we were all done, this goal plan, this action plan for Daniel was done for March through essentially December. Now, the beauty of it is it was flexible, but it created a basic plan that he could work with so that when Daniel came on board, he had some structure, he had some direction, and he didn't walk into the job suddenly fearful, lack of direction, not knowing what he was doing. This is what strategic thinking is about. Planning ahead, but understanding that you have to be flexible. The advantage of having this done, which we did not realize this was going to happen, but Daniel starts work, and a week later, the business shuts down in the sense that now everybody now has to be at home, and everybody has to work from home. So here he's at work for 1 week, and suddenly it switched. While a lot of people were going through turmoil because he had set goals, because him and his supervisor had an action plan. The supervisor and I could work with Daniel and say, all right, look, here's the action plan. We're just going to have to adjust a few of them, but we had a visual that we could easily adjust so that his new employee, Daniel, could easily meld into this new way. And it's worked out great. So that's the major reason why we want to do this. This is why we always want to be thinking strategically and thinking ahead and looking towards what is our goals so that when something does happen, you're still moving forward. Okay? What stops people? What stops us from setting goals? Fear, of course. One is people don't know how. A big one that stops a lot of people is the time. I tell every leader that if I'm working with one of my employees, for example, I dedicate about 10 hours. Doesn't mean it's 10 hours in one day. It could be 10 hours spread over 2 months, maybe 3 months, but it takes time. Once you have a process and once you have something in place, then you can save time. And then flat out, it stops because of excuses. The excuses could be they don't want to. The excuses, generally it's underlying with fear. They don't know how or at the time, but excuses can stop us. We're always making excuses of why we don't do something. So what is fear? Fear stops people in their tracks. It creates really poor decision making. When people are working in fear, when they don't know what's coming, when they have no idea what tomorrow is going to look like, it ends up creating really poor decision making, and therefore the strategic thinking again just goes away, because they start thinking about the right now. The right now is important, but we also have to look ahead. Most fear can be alleviated. The key here is not eliminated, alleviated, when people understand what their goals are and have something to look towards. Time. I just told you that I dedicate about 10 hours. Not every time. We're going to develop a plan for the next 12 months. Here's the goals. Here's what we're going to look towards. Here's what we need to accomplish. When you're doing your own, that could take approximately, anywhere from 8 to 10 hours of time. Could take it over a 2-month period, over a 3-month period. For some, it's longer. When I'm doing strategic planning for my company, it could take 20 hours, right? But the key is that once you have it, and once you have a process in place, and once you start doing it, that gets easier and easier. And then the beauty of it is, when people have direction, they save an extra 4 to 10 hours a week. That means they can be 4 to 10 hours more productive, which is a big thing. Let me give you an example, and let me give you a real life example. Think to yourself, and I know you can't, I can't see you or anything of that nature, but if you have questions, you can type them in the question box and I'll answer them at the end. But think for a moment right now, when you had to suddenly change, whatever that change was. I'll give you a real life example for me. I have 2 young boys, 7 and 10-year-old. My husband is essential, so he had to work. And then I had to suddenly teach my kids, work from home, and do everything else. All travel stopped, everything. So everything had to switch. Right then and there, we had 2 choices. We could go in complete turmoil, or we could sit down and create a plan. All right, here's what school's going to look like. We know that your teacher's going to be sending things, so we're going to dedicate this amount of hours to this. However we're going to structure it. We're going to take breaks throughout it. I did a calendar every single week. Here's what my calendar looks like. Here's what your calendar looks like. It sounds like I'm really, really organized. By the way, that took time to do that. It wasn't like boom, we're talking 2 to 3 weeks into it. But think about the little goals that you set. Think about the little things. For those of you that went to the grocery store, right? Maybe normally you go to the grocery store every other day and get what you want, or you just go out to dinner. Well, suddenly you had to plan what were going to be the meals. What am I going to purchase? And maybe you only went once a week. Those little things are goals. I know a lot of people that suddenly decided they're going to clean their house and reorganize, and they did a complete cleaning, and they moved things, and they purged, and they did all these. Those are also goals. And the beauty of it is, when it was done, you felt such a sense of accomplishment. And that sense of accomplishment helps alleviate the fear, the excuses, the emotion. Okay? It starts making people look towards victory. And victory is a huge part of strategic thinking. So strategic thinking is, simply put, it's when we have goals and a plan to keep moving forward, but understanding that that plan can sometimes need to be adjusted. Okay? So we prepare, we develop, and then we plan, okay? And then understand that it can be adjusted, but you still have some direction. Okay? That's the importance of goal setting. The beauty of what I'm about to teach you in a moment is that you could do this if you have children. You could do it with your children. If you are in a leadership role, you could do it with your team, and you can do this for yourself. All of my clients that I work with, and the ones that we worked with, they have worked with each of their team members to work with their goals over the next 6 months to a year. Okay? Some of them had trouble with it, but some of them found it easy. Okay? But the key is it's giving something to look forward to. Excuse me. I just want to talk about this picture really quick, but the idea is this. A lot of people live in the clouds and have fog and don't. And what that can create in a work environment is that can create stress, that can create depression, it can create sadness. When people have goals, they have a strategic plan, they feel like they're moving forward, and you can take away that head in the cloud type of feeling. So we talked about the importance. I only want to go over 2 major pieces of this bullet point because I talked about most of it already. But the first one helps you focus your energy and accomplish more. And the last one, with goals, go as far as you can see. And when you get there, you will see further. Let me give you an example. I have one individual, and I called her to ask if I could talk to her, but she's the chief of her particular organization, and was talking with the chief. And I had told her, I said, all right, let's just sit down on what does the next 6 months look like? She goes, Tony, I have no idea. It all depends on what we're called and what we're allowed to do and what we're not allowed to do. I said, let's just look at what we can control, what we do know. Let's just look at the no's and let's just go there. And let's develop a plan for that far. So we did 6 months, but we looked at 6 months for just as far as we can go. Okay. Then when that 6 months is up, which in this case it's August, we've already been working in July and talking about, okay, now what does the next 6 months look like? This is what strategic thinking is about for yourself or for your individual team. Okay. We look as far as we can go. And then once we get there, we can see further. Okay, we've accomplished this. Now what can we see? You don't have to try to tackle the mountain with nothing. Sometimes it's the little steps that are going to get you there, and that's what we have to remember. Goal setting and strategic thinking, I already told you, it takes time. The third bullet point, strategic goals help you with balancing your personal and professional life, allows you to feel a sense of accomplishment. I have a lot of people talk to me about balance of work and regular life. Balance is just feeling like you're okay. Okay, and feeling like, I have my priorities straight, whatever your priorities are, and you're doing what you need to do. It doesn't mean you have to be perfect. Let's be clear on that. I know for me, there was no way I'm perfect. There were days, I'll give you a great example. There was a day in May where I literally said to myself, I quit being a mom. I just can't do this. Now remember, my husband, in my case, my husband was essential and he was working 10 hours a week, so he was going to work. I had 2 kids that had no desire to do anything school related, and I had a client that was extremely difficult at the time, and I had just had it, and I was like, I just quit. I looked at my boys, I said, I quit being a mom. I don't care, do whatever you want. Right? Here's the thing, right? Finding that balance is not always easy, and we're allowed to have bad days. The key is that sometimes we have to take a break, walk away, say, all right, I need a break. I need to go for a walk. I grab my kids, so let's just go. Let's go for a walk. Let's just, go for a bike ride, whatever. And then we can come back and then refocus. Okay? So strategic goals help you balance your personal and professional life because now you know what the direction is. It's easier to refocus because you have the goals put in place. As opposed to, I quit, it's total chaos. I don't know what we're supposed to be doing. Okay. The goals bring you back. All right. So how do you set them? Now this may, for some of you, this picture may look complete chaotic, and that's okay. This is what's called a mind map, and everyone takes notes differently and does things differently. Just so you know, I asked permission from somebody, from my clients, if I could use theirs. So this isn't mine specifically, this is someone who allowed me. But the first step of goal planning is to dream. The first step of strategic thinking is just to dream. And it's similar to what many people call brainstorming, right? It's just a dream. So we're going to talk about yourself, but again, you could do this with your team, with your employees, whichever. If you do this with your employees, I tell them that this is confidential and they don't have to share their dream sheet with you unless they desire. So I tell them, you're going to just dream. You're going to spend a week just dreaming. Not every day, okay? Maybe 30 minutes a day just dreaming, or maybe before you go to bed or when you wake up, you just dream. And you think about, where do you want to be in your career? Where do you want to be physically, spiritually, mentally, with your family, financially, personally? Okay? Whatever that is. Okay? Again, this one's not mine. You can remove any category you want out of there. So if family is not part of your dream sheet, then remove it. Okay. If physical is not part of your dream sheet, then remove it. If spiritual is not part of your dream sheet, then remove it. But the idea is, you just dream. Think about everything you want to accomplish and put it in there. This is for your personal one. And a work-related one, your dream sheet might be certain projects in there. Where do you want to be with this? Where do you want to be with that? Where do you want to be in your career? Okay. So everything you want to do, everything you want to be, everything you want to have, everything you want to give, that's your dream sheet. This, I recommend, is step one. So if you were to leave this webinar, what I would recommend is every day for the next 7 days is have a sheet of paper, write it any way you want. It can be a list or it can be like this, okay? And just dream. Put everything you want to accomplish. And you're not allowed to judge it. It doesn't matter. Just put it in there. Okay? Then once you're done dreaming, where you take one, you kind of look through them and you sort of categorize them and you break them down and you think, all right, this is the one I want to work on. And is this one realistic? And you ask some questions. Is it realistic? Do you truly feel like you can accomplish it? Do you believe in yourself? You ask yourself those questions to make sure it's something you want. Doesn't mean you get rid of your dream sheet, because you always have these to come to. Okay? The difference between a dream and a goal is just something that has a deadline and a plan and you're ready to go. A dream is just a dream until you make it a goal. Okay? So it's allowed to stay there. So you could do this, and just to relate it back to your team, you could do the same thing with your team. You know, we're working with your whole team. Your whole team could just sit down, and if we were doing like a day of training, they would do this prior to coming to the training, but they could sit down and talk about the dream for their department and the organization and where they want it to go. And then everybody shares it, and you just start breaking down. You pull out 1, 2, or 3 items in there. And then once you pull them out, you start working on it. So think to yourself, I asked you at the beginning of the webinar, what is one goal you want to work on personally? Because we'll focus on you first. What do you do next? Okay. Here's what we're going to spend some time on. And we're going to stay on this slide for pretty much the rest of the short time that we have here, but I'm trying to go through it for you. Okay? And again, we have lots of classes at New Horizons where we'll dig deeper into strategic thinking and communication and goal setting. But here is 7 basic steps. This comes from Zig Ziglar, who created this. It's the 7 steps to goal setting process. It's like a formula. You know that 2 times 6 is 12. It's a formula. You know how to do it. It's math. Sorry for the quick math lesson. If you know that 2 times 6 is 12, and you know how to do it and how to do that math, I could ask you, what's 3,487 times 53? Now, you guys may know that off your head, but you could then take paper and figure it out, because it's a formula. It's a process. That's the beauty of this. There's 7 steps to goal setting. It's a process, and I promise you, if you follow the process, the victories are enormous. Now, I've had individuals that I work with that looked at me and said, this process is too long, it's just too complicated, I'm not going to do it. Okay, what is really stopping you? So go back to what is it that's stopping you? Is it fear? Is it because it's truly a time? Is it because your lack of organization, so you're just not sure to where to fill it in? If that's the case, make that one of your goals and figure it out. Okay, but figure out what's stopping you. Okay? Why are you not willing? When you work with your team members, it's going to be your job as a leader to check up and hold them accountable and find out where they are in the goals. It's amazing when you have a team. For example, I have 3 team members. When I meet with them on an individual basis, it's so much more effective to meet with them on how are you doing with this, where are you at, and how can I help you with this goal, than it is to say, hey, how's things going? What you been up to? When people have direction, it's easier for you as a leader to lead them, serve them, and help them. So what are the 7 steps? Excuse me for a moment. First step, identify the goal. Okay, what does identify the goal mean? It doesn't mean, let's use something really simple, really simple. I want to lose weight. Okay, great. So let's use that goal that somebody has. I want to lose weight. First question to ask them is, how much do you want to lose? All right, so let's say they go, I want to lose 50 pounds. All right, you want to lose 50 pounds. When do you want to have the 50 pounds lost? All right, well, let's say they go, well, I'd like to lose, maybe 10 pounds a month. So 5 months from now. All right, so then you go to your calendar and you figure out what 5 months from now is. Okay, so August, September, October, November, December. So by December, let's just go all the way to the end of December. So by December 31st, you want to be 50 pounds lighter. Yes. Okay, so what you want to do with your team is you want to identify the goal. So if I have an employee and they say to me, my goal in 6 months is to be, well, let's use a realistic one. Okay? My goal in 6 months is to have built a relationship with this particular department. All right, what does that look like? What do you mean build a relationship? All right, well, I want to have met with them on a monthly basis. I want to, be on meeting with them on a monthly basis. I want to make sure that we're working on such and such project. And what we found out, what we realized is the real goal is that you want to accomplish project A, okay, by October 30th. Yes, okay, with this particular team. Okay, great. You want to accomplish project A, okay, by October 30th with team B. Okay, that's the goal. So really draw it in and figure out what that goal is. You can have one goal, you can have 3 goals. I recommend 3 is it, because under those goals, there's going to be little action steps, which are kind of like minor or other goals in between. So 3 as far as I go, whether I'm working with my department, whether I'm talking about my organization as a whole, or I'm talking about me personally. Okay? 3 is plenty to work on. The next step is to define the obstacles. So let me give you an example. You ready? Let's say you had a dream and your dream was to visit the Empire State Building and see the view from the very top of the Empire State Building. And here you are, and you finally get there, and you've been working for years to get there. And when you get there, you find out the elevator is broken. And it's going to be broken the entire time you're in New York to do this. Well, you have a choice. You can go, well, forget it, I'll come back another time, or you can take the steps. Now, I know some of you are like, I'm coming back another time, right? Because it's 170 flights or something like that. But the point is that, but let's say you go, I'm going to take the steps. And so you start climbing flight after flight after flight. And maybe the first 5 flights, no big deal. You get there, it's no big deal. You got it. But then you get to the 5th flight and you're worn out. So you stop and you take a drink of water and you rest a little bit. And then you go maybe 5 more flights. And now you're just beat and you're exhausted and you're not sure how you're going to get there. And then you just say, all right, I'm going to get up, I'm going to keep going. And as you go, you realize you have friends with you. They decided to come with you, right? And so they're encouraging you and they're walking up the steps with you and they're pushing you and you're pushing them and everybody's encouraging each other. And then you get to, flight 100 and you're over halfway there. This is what goal setting's like. All of those steps, all of those flights are the little steps in between. The obstacles are the things that stop you. So in this case, it might be exhaustion, lack of water if you're doing it alone, right? If it's weight loss, maybe you emotionally eat. Maybe it's you just need a personal trainer. Maybe some of the obstacles are you just don't know how to. If it's to move up in a career, maybe some of the obstacles could be training, maybe lack of opportunity. Who knows what it is, but you define the obstacle. The reason why that's an extremely important step that many people forget is because the obstacles are part of your action plan. It's how to get over it. It's the same as the idea is if you're driving and when you get to a point where the road is closed. The road closes the obstacle. The action plan is, which way are you going to go to get around it? Okay, so you define the obstacles up front so that when they do come, they don't feel as enormous as they could be. Now, can you plan for every obstacle? No way. You can't plan for the world shut down from a pandemic. That's not possible to plan. But you could plan for other obstacles, and so when they come, you can adjust. The next thing, once you define the obstacles, is define the benefits. Now, this is a huge step. And these, I'll tell you, these 2 steps, the obstacles and the benefits, these are the 2 steps that most organizations and most leaders skip. They sit down and they go, all right, here's our goal, here's our action plan of how we're going to do it, here's who's involved, and here's the deadline. And that's our strategic initiative. The obstacles and the benefits are, to me, the 2 most important steps. The benefits are your why. That's the thing that keeps you going. What are the benefits to you, to your team, to the department, to your family, whoever it is? What are the benefits to achieving this goal? What are the benefits? Right? Maybe the benefits is you feel healthy, you get more time with your kids. Maybe the benefits are more money, more family time, more this. I don't know. Okay, but whatever the benefits are, those are your why. So when you are in the process of working towards that goal, whether it's a personal goal or it's your team, and everybody starts feeling down or you feel like you're just not making any headway, you're just not getting there, you stop and you go back to the benefits and you go back to why are you guys doing it in the first place to help you get re-energized. That why needs to be so strong that will energize you and get everybody excited. Go back to where you started. So you identify the goal, you go through the obstacles, you define the benefits, then you figure out what skills and knowledge that you have, whatever skills and knowledge, that you need, whatever skills and knowledge that you need, those are action steps for the goal. Those are things that you're going to have to do. Maybe there's certifications you need, maybe there's training, maybe there's certain skills you have to learn, maybe there's videos you have to watch. Okay, what people do you need? So who are the team members that are going to get you there? If it's a personal goal, who's going to encourage you? Who can hold you accountable? If it's a weight loss goal, who's the personal trainer if that's what you need? Okay, so who are the accountability partners? Who's the team that's involved? What are the individuals that are going to work to accomplish this goal? So you identify it, you figure out what the obstacles are, what the benefits are, what skills and knowledge is needed, and what people. Now, I'll tell you, for a company goal or a department goal, the people are going to be based on the skills and knowledge that's needed, right? So if you need somebody who's really good at project planning, then one of the people that you put into this group is somebody who's really good at project planning. Okay. And then the action plan. And this is going to be something that's going to continue. So maybe the first part of the action plan has 5 steps. But once you achieve those 5 steps, then maybe it's 5 more. Okay. So maybe the deadline for the goal is December 31st, but the action plan only takes you through September right now. Then when the beginning of September starts, you start figuring out what you're going to do to get to December for the action plan. For others, the action plan is the entire year. You know what the steps are. Okay, the action plan is, we're going to have a communication plan. This is how we're going to communicate. This is going to be our marketing plan. This is how this is going to work, whatever it is. Okay. The action plan are the steps that get you. If you don't know what the steps are, go back to the obstacles. What are some of the obstacles are getting in your way? What are some of the skills and knowledge you need to get? Those are all steps in the action plan. Remember that people are here. No goal should be set alone. Okay, so for those of you that live alone, then you want to find people around you that encourage you, help you, get on Zoom calls with them, and surround yourself and let them help you with this action plan. If it's a company and you have a personal goal that you want to get better, then involve the person who is your leader and let them help you get there, okay? Or your coworkers. Okay? And then the deadline. The deadline cannot say 6 months from now. Pick a date. Pick a date. Just so you're aware, every step in the action plan also has a deadline. So it looks like a project plan. So every step in the action plan also has a deadline. Now, it could be step 1 is accomplished by August 1st of 2020. Step 2 will be accomplished by, August 30th of 2020. Step whatever and so on and so forth. The ultimate goal will be accomplished by December 31st, 2020. This is really the first step to strategic thinking. I've been to a lot of strategic thinking meetings, many, and sometimes the strategic thinking meeting is really about what is our roadmap and where are we going with our organization. And it might be 3 years out, and that's a great thing, and we'll do that. But again, I'll start backtracking and figuring out why do we want to get to that point? Where do we want to be in 3 years and why? The why is our benefits. Okay, the goal is the big goal. The action steps are what are we going to do to get to that 3-year plan. Okay? But from a smaller scale, as a leader working with one of your employees, is asking that employee, you know, where do you want to be 6 months? Where do you want to be a year? Now, the question I get from a lot of people are, what about my employees who are eligible for retirement? And they'll tell me they don't have goals. Look, everybody has goals. A bank robber has a goal. Okay, everybody has goals. They all have direction. They all know they want something. Right? So if they say, well, I'm eligible for retirement, their goal may be, you know, what are you going to do between now and retirement to get you? Right? So as a leader, you really want them to go back and think about their dream sheet, maybe from a work standpoint, identify the goal, help them figure out what obstacles are there, what are the benefits to achieving it, what skills and knowledge do they need, what people can help them, what's the action plan, and what's the deadline. Once they have those things, now you have a set program. Right? And that program now gives you a strategic direction. And the beauty of it is that it's flexible. So something happens, something dramatic happens, like a pandemic, and suddenly now you've got to go back and you've got to adjust. It's a whole lot easier to adjust when you have a plan than it is when you have nothing. It's a whole lot easier to adjust when you have a plan and you know where you're going than when you have nothing. Mm-hmm. So those are the 7 steps. It's a formula, it's a process. I highly recommend sitting with your team, doing it, sitting by yourself, doing it. If you have, you know, children, you could work with your children and have them do this. You practice this. The more often you do it, the easier the process happens. It's just like a child first learning math can be very, very difficult. But as an adult, it gets pretty easy to add and subtract in your head for some, right? For some of us, who knows? But the key is that once you have the process, then it gets easier and easier to set goals and saves you time, makes you more productive, and keeps you energized and focused. So all of those emotions that we talked about before, fear can still be there, but it's alleviated. It's not eliminated, but you can alleviate it. Okay? The unknown is still there, but at least you have direction and you're controlling what you have control over. Okay? That's the key to it. So when we think of strategic thinking, we can make it this really complicated thing, or we can look at strategic thinking as it's simply setting goals, figuring out the action steps, and how we're going to get there. And it's also working with a team of people, personally or professionally, to help you get there. That's what this is. Okay? And again, it can be 6 months, 12 months, a year, 3 years, however you like to look at it. I'd like to give you this quote. When you become a goal setter and achiever, you become a role model for your team. Throughout all of this uncertainty that we have right now in the world, you know, some people don't know what's happening tomorrow or what's happening, you know, the next month or whichever. Throughout all this uncertainty, as a leader, you are a role model. It doesn't mean you have to lie, but if you sit down and you kind of go over what goals you have, you'll find that you're more positive, you're more optimistic, and you have more direction, and therefore your team will follow. Okay? So you always have to remember that leaders are role models, whether you are in a leadership role, you know, by definition, or you're just a leader, okay, in general. You are the role model of what you want others to be. So I highly encourage you to take a step back, and today, the goal you thought of at the beginning of this webinar, you sit down and you write it. And you write it as detailed, as specific as possible. Identify that goal and be very specific. As example, I want to lose, this is not my goal, but for example, somebody says, I want to lose 50 pounds by December 31st. Or someone has a goal, I want to achieve such and such certification by this date. Okay. Or I want to complete project A by this date. Or I would like to meet with these 3 people by this date. Okay. Be as specific as possible. Okay? And remember that when we have direction, we achieve more, we accomplish more, and we have more energy, which thus helps us in every aspect of our lives. So think about what questions you might have. Really, really think about them. If you have some questions, go ahead and write them in the questions area, the questions box, and we'll take some time and we'll answer those questions. And I'll pull it over to you, Mayan.
Great. Thank you so much, Tony. I appreciate it. Like Tony said, if anyone has any questions, please feel free to type it into the questions box right now. And Tony, if you scroll back to the slide
Which
here.
one?
It went back to your summary slide. There you go.
Oh, sorry.
No,
there you
don't
go.
even apologize. Just wanted to let everyone know, New Horizons has been teaching our virtual and online for nearly 20 years, since 2001. And a lot of our facilitators and instructors, they are trained, especially, when COVID hit, to teach face-to-face and virtually with no problem at all. So it was seamless. And also, we're holding having a lot of these webinars that are centered around our leadership and development courses, which we have about 50 to 60 post-class resources that are available to you when you do decide to enroll and see what else is out there. Please reach out to your AE at the nearest New Horizons Center to you. Also, our webinar schedule is up to date on our website at newhorizons.com. You can go there, do a quick search on the webinars tab, and you can see what's available to you. We have a lot of great sessions. We do monthly leadership and development webinars for you, and Tony's done quite a few of them for us. So don't be surprised if you see her in the upcoming months as well. With that said, we do have a couple questions that have come in, Tony. If you're ready for them, I'll read them out to you.
Go ahead. Go ahead. There's my son back there. Sorry. Go ahead.
Not a problem. And the first one is, do you have any advice on how to deal with fear and keeping a good mindset or focus to keep you going when your company is going through a reorg during pandemic? And it's quite a long one. And if you have no idea if you will ever have a job in a few months. So it seems like the questions are centering around how can you stay focused knowing that there's a lot of change going on, especially surrounding the current state, of the world.
Okay, so first and foremost, it's really hard. It's very, very difficult when you don't know where your job's going to be. I've been there twice, and where you just lose everything. And I've been to a point in our lives where we've lost everything. I've been to a point where completely and utterly unknown. But can you hold one more? Okay, I'm sorry about that. Out. All right. Anyway, the key to all of this is that you have to first and foremost think about what you can control and what you do know. Okay, and the person that you can control is you. So sometimes the best thing you can do is just start setting personal goals and start accomplishing things for yourself and thinking about where do you want to be. So and I know this sounds crazy, but think about, all right, my company is not going to exist. Let's think about the worst scenario. I'm going to lose my job. My company's not going to exist. What can I plan now to start doing something differently? That's one direction. I'm not telling you this is the be all end all. I'm just giving you a couple of tips. So one direction is just to start thinking about, not be selfish, but thinking about yourself. What can you do? All right, what can I do to improve my skills? What can I do to build my resume? Who do I know? Okay, that can help me. Right. The second thing to help you when you have all this fear, and I get it, it's not easy right now, is to surround yourself with people who lift you up. And I'll tell you something I've done. I have deleted my social media apps from my phone because of the negativity, and it just creates so much. So I have kind of removed that from my world for a little while. And so surround yourself with people who are going to lift you up, because if the only people you're communicating with are the same people that are going, oh yes, it's bad, the world's falling, the whole world's coming down, it's just going to bring you worse and worse and worse. You cannot control where your organization's going to go. You cannot control, are you going to have a job in 3 months or 6 months? What you can control is what you're going to do about it. And whatever that is, maybe it's meeting with the leadership of that organization and saying, what can I do to help you? I'll tell you this, it's very, very interesting, but I've worked with a lot of people, and it's rare to find individuals that will meet with the leaders of the organization and say, what can I do to help you? Because they'll say, well, it's not going to do anything. Look, you have no idea until you try. You have no idea until you take the first step. So those are just general things. Here's a little personal tip that I do, and you might think it's crazy, you might think it's great, whatever, but every single solitary morning, every morning, those expo markers, those dry erase markers, you can write on a mirror, and they come off with no problem. They don't create a film, they don't do anything. So every week I'll write something positive about myself on my mirror in my bathroom. Okay? Or something positive about a goal I have, whatever. And every morning when you look in the mirror, and every night before you go to bed and you use the restroom and you look in that mirror in your bathroom, it will give you a reminder, and you say it out loud. The more you say positive things to yourself, the easier it is. Again, I can't eliminate the fear. I can't remove the unknown. All we can do is control how we think about it. And one of the best things you can do is feed your mind with positive thoughts. It's easier said than done. It takes a ton of practice, but it can be done. So surround yourself with positive people. Start figuring out your goals, what you're going to do. Ask the leaders how you can help. Okay? And then think about individually, what are your goals, and start working towards your personal goals to accomplish. I hope that answers your question. I hope that helps.
Great. The next question is, you were talking a little bit about, goals. The person asked, can you please share a goal in writing that has gone through with the process that you had described in the presentation?
You want one of my personal goals? I don't share.
They're just asking for a goal that's been done and just going through your process there.
Okay, I would love to just bring it up for you. You know what? I'm not going to bring it up for you. I would love to bring it up for you. Unfortunately, of course, this happened. But Sunday, I lost a bunch of files on my computer that were not saved in the cloud, and a whole bunch of other things. I had to buy a new computer, so I'm not logged into everything. Otherwise, I would show you. But I'll give you a personal goal. I'll give you a personal goal and a professional goal. So, or I'll just start with personal. I have a personal goal that I had. Okay, for which one do I want to give you? All right, I'll give you my favorite because we just finished. I had a goal, our family, to get out of debt. So I'm not going to go into the details, but we owned a company a few years ago. We lost the company. It put us in a very, very serious debt situation, huge debt load, thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars, where we almost lost everything in our lives. I mean, we almost lost our house. We almost lost our vehicles. We almost lost everything. And so we had to sit down and set a goal for it. So the goal was written as this way. I didn't write it as to be debt free because that goal was way too far off base. So the goal was written to be $20,000 less debt. In this particular case, we did this goal in June of 2019 to be $20,000 less debt by June 2020. So we gave a specific number. We wanted to be $10,000 less in our total debt. And just so you're aware, we're talking the business we lost put us hundreds of thousands of dollars in debt. So we had to break this into small pieces. So $10,000 less in debt by June 2020. And so that was the actual goal. The obstacles, obviously the obstacles are financial obstacles. Some of the other obstacles were spending habits. We had to change what spending habits we're going to do, how we're going to change those spending habits. So that was another big obstacle. Another obstacle was, gosh, I have to think back through it. I wish I could just bring it up for you. Another obstacle was, my husband's spending habits. Okay. Meeting. One of the things we wanted to do was to meet about the financials on a regular basis. So in our case, it was monthly. That's an obstacle for us meeting because my husband's schedule is not. He works nights for a certain period of time. He works days at a certain period of time. And he works 10 hours. So trying to create the schedules was an obstacle. Okay. And then there were tons of benefits. Obviously one of the benefits is to be $10,000 lighter in debt. And this is the last part of the goal, by the way. We started this goal in 2011. So we're towards the very end at this point, just to be clear. And so then we had a huge benefits. And then we also put in there some of the skills and knowledge where financial knowledge is. We had talking to individuals have really strong financial knowledge, understanding investments of how we can increase revenue in order to help us get to that point. The people were involved in there, but one of the big action plans that we had, one big step, was to have a huge major victory party when all this was done. Now, it didn't mean that we had to bring a bunch of people to have the victory party. In our case, it was our family. And we just had that victory party, by the way, 4th of July weekend, where it was just our family, but we had a big victory party of achieving this goal. Okay, so that was one of the action steps. So that's sort of the process that we went through for a realistic one. I'd be happy to, I don't know if it's possible, Kara or my end could tell you, but I would be absolutely more than willing, I don't know if you can share it, but share my actual goal once I can get it and put it through the webinar. I don't know if that's a possibility, but if it is, I can add that to this webinar somehow. I could do that for you.
Great. We can find a way to get that to those attending, even if they request it via email. Another question that came up is actually, one that I could relate to at sometimes is, how can I overcome procrastination after setting a goal? And I'm not one to procrastinate, but sometimes when you get a goal up there and you're just like, it'd be great to start it.
All right, so I'll tell you, the first tip I have for that one is to find somebody who's really, really organized and really good, and surround yourself with that person so that you can learn from them. So I will give you, realistically, when I was the CEO of the National Battlefield here, it was very interesting because my biggest downfall was procrastination. And most of the time it's because I just didn't want to do it. So I hired this amazing individual who was so detail oriented. He was my assistant, and we were always at each other's heads, or each other's throats, not arguing, but we just could never find a common ground until I realized, wait, he's complete opposite of me. He's detail oriented to the extreme and everything else, and that's not me. So he has actually helped me with that stage of procrastination of just get it done, make it happen type of thing. So I will tell you that if you can find somebody who is not a procrastinator and learn from them and take their skill, that's a big one. The other thing that you can do for procrastination is to break it down into itty bitty steps. Because one of the biggest reasons that most people procrastinate is because they see the big picture, but that's all they can see. So they only see the mountain, but they don't see the little bitty steps to get to the top of the mountain. So if you can break it into little steps and just concentrate on that, okay, all I got to do is do this. So I'll give you another good one, that losing weight one. Instead of going, I want to lose 50 pounds by the end of December, break that down into what does it come out to be a week? I don't know if it does, but let's say I want to lose 1.5 pounds a week. And so therefore, then when you accomplish that little one, wow, you start feeling good. And then you accomplish the second one, you start feeling good, and the procrastination starts to subside. The other tip I have you, so first tip is to find somebody that you can learn from. The second tip is to break it into smaller pieces. And then this is the third one. The third one is to do it right away. So whatever that goal is, if it's something that has to be accomplished, let's say tomorrow, when you wake up, do it first. Because if you keep putting it off, you'll procrastinate, and then just say, oh, I'll do it tomorrow. Oh, I'll do it tomorrow. Just do it first. So take a really simple example of somebody says, I want to clean my house. All right, well, let's use that as a goal. I want to clean my house, whatever that clean the house looks like. Meaning maybe I want to organize, let's use realistic. I want to organize my office to a point where it feels like I know where everything is. All right, that could be a huge task for people. So maybe the first task is just to go through everything and clean it out. So I'm going to do that first, and I'm only going to dedicate an hour to it. And when that hour is done, I'm done with that task for that day. And then, so I don't have to say I'm going to work on it all day for the 8 hours, because that also creates procrastination. So I'm going to do it for 1 hour. Then the next day, I'm going to do it again for another hour. And the next day, I'm going to do it again for another hour. So there's 4 tips here. Find somebody that you can learn from, right? Second tip, do it first if it's possible. Third tip is to put it into really, really small steps. And the fourth tip is to break it into smaller time frames if you need to. So if it's something that you feel like it's got to be done for the day, then say, I'm just going to work on it for this 1 hour and accomplish something. And then work on it the next day. Okay. Hope that helps.
Perfect. I know we're getting to the top of the hour, so just a couple more questions here. When concerning, the basic steps and things in, goal setting, when you stumble upon an obstacle after you have an action plan in place, would it make sense to restart because you're making an adjustment due to whatever that obstacle is?
So that's a difficult question because it's going to be dependent. It really will be dependent on the obstacle. So if we want to use something realistic, like that employee Daniel that I was telling you. So his supervisor's name is Josh. And so Josh and I were working on a complete training plan for Daniel, knowing that he was going to start in March. Well, he starts, and 1 week later, he's now working from home, not in the office. And this particular position is not something where working from home is, let's put it this way, it's not the company that's suddenly going to switch to all working from home. It's not a possibility. So it was a huge, huge obstacle. Instead of going back to the very beginning and redoing it, we just adjusted. So in that particular situation, sometimes it's not that you have to go back. Sometimes it's you just have to adjust. And what you're adjusting is the action plan. So when you're looking at these 10 steps, we might look and go, all right, you know what? These 5, we're just going to move. We're going to move those. And we actually took out 5 of the action plan steps and we moved them to a different goal that he'll do once they start going back to work in the office full time. So we just removed 5 steps and said that will be a new goal once we get there. Okay, so that can be one. When you get an obstacle, it might just be we're going to take some of the steps out and we're going to create that as a whole new goal. All right. Others, you may just adjust the goal and say, all right, yep, you know what? We're at an obstacle. We just need to adjust it, change its trajectory. We're going to move it here, look at it this way. But you'll go through the whole steps again. You'll look at the steps and you go, all right, we know this obstacle. How are we going to overcome it? What are the benefits to overcoming it? What skills and knowledge do we need? What are the action plans? And then for others, you may just throw it out and start over. Unfortunately, it really depends on what the obstacle is. But I'll tell you, I've never done the statistics, but I would tell you the majority of the time, it's just an adjustment where some pieces move out and create a new goal, or you just adjust the direction. Did that answer the question?
Yes, it did.
Okay.
Thank you. Everyone, I know we're at the top of the hour. I really appreciate, Tony, your time and presenting on behalf of New Horizons. Another great session here. Just a quick reminder to everyone who's joining us, that a recording link to today's session will be sent out later today. So please be on the lookout for that. Share it with colleagues, review it at your own pace with really good information. With that being said, this concludes our webinar. Hopefully we can see you all again on another session in the upcoming weeks. With that, you may now log off. Thank you again. Have a good one.